Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a really cool, kind of mind-bending idea from South African law. It's got a pretty formal name, but trust me, what it does is incredibly powerful and actually quite simple. Let's get right into it.
So let's start with the big question. Does an unborn child, a fetus, actually have legal rights? Can it inherit money? Can it sue someone if it gets hurt? This is a huge issue that the law has to grapple with, and the answer isn't a straightforward yes or no. So instead of a simple yes or no, South African law has this super clever tool called the Nasciturus Fiction. Now, I know what you're thinking. Fiction? That sounds like something made up. But don't let the name fool you. This isn't make-believe. It's a brilliant legal workaround designed to make sure things are fair. Okay, so what does that actually mean? Here's the core idea. The law basically says, okay, for this specific situation, we're going to act as if the child was already born at the moment of conception. But, and this is the most important part, it only does this if it benefits the child. It doesn't give a fetus full legal status or anything like that, but it hits a rewind button, so to speak, to protect the child's future interests. Now, for this whole thing to work, there are two conditions that are absolutely non-negotiable. First up, the child has to be born alive. If that doesn't happen, the fiction just disappears. And second, it can only be used if the result is good for the child. You can't use it to saddle them with debt or some kind of burden. So remember those two keys, born alive, and it's got to be for their benefit. All right, theory is one thing, but what does this look like in the real world? Well, the best way to understand it is to look at inheritance law. Let's walk through a story. So let's meet Zola. In a heartbreaking turn of events, her father, Sipho, dies in an accident. And at the time of his death, Zola's mother is pregnant with her. So Zola isn't even born yet. And this brings up a really tough legal question. When Sipho's estate is being divided up, does Zola count? Can she possibly inherit from a father she never got to meet, who passed away before she was technically a person in the eyes of the law? And thanks to the Nasciturus Fiction, the answer is a resounding yes, as long as those two conditions we talked about are met. If Zola is eventually born alive, and of course, getting an inheritance is to her advantage, then the law treats her as if she was already there when her father died. It's how her rightful share is protected. So we've seen how this fiction protects a child when it comes to inheritance. But it's also a huge deal in another area, delictual claims. And that's really just a fancy legal term for when you claim damages because someone wronged you. Okay, let's look at another scenario. This is Themba. Before he was born, his mother was in a car crash that was caused by a negligent driver. Tragically, Themba himself was injured in that accident while he was still in the womb. So, you can see the legal puzzle here, right? After Themba is born, can he actually sue the driver for the injuries he got before he was born? I mean, can you be legally harmed before you're legally a person? And once again, the Nasciturus Fiction steps in to provide the answer. And that answer is yes, he absolutely can. The law pretends he was already born when the accident happened, which gives him the right to claim damages. But of course, only if our two golden rules apply. He has to be born alive, and getting that financial compensation is for his benefit. We've seen a couple of real-world examples, but let's just zoom out for a second. Why even create this legal fiction in the first place? Why is it so important? This quote just says it all. It's a legal fiction, sure, but it's one that safeguards the very real interests of a child. It's a practical, creative solution designed to deliver justice and make sure a child's future is secure. So the bottom line is this. The Nasciturus Fiction is basically a protective shield. It makes sure that a child isn't put at a massive disadvantage just because of the terrible timing of an accident or a death that happened just before they were born. And isn't that just an incredible example of how the law can be creative? It sets up this as-if scenario to produce a very real, very tangible result: fairness for the most vulnerable among us. It just goes to show you, sometimes the cleverest solutions are the ones that bend the rules a little to protect what really matters.
Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and follow Talk Legal SA on other platforms.